Sarah Miller, a meticulously organized freelance journalist, stands in her grandmother's dusty attic, surrounded by decades of accumulated memories. Cardboard boxes teeter precariously, each filled with fragments of familial history. Her hands, adorned with a delicate silver ring, carefully sift through yellowed newspapers, faded photographs, and forgotten mementos. A leather-bound box catches her attention. Unlike the other containers, this one is pristine, almost untouched by time. The leather is supple, its deep burgundy color reminiscent of dried blood. When she opens it, a musty smell of aged paper and forgotten secrets escapes. Inside, meticulously organized and tied with a faded silk ribbon, are dozens of love letters. The handwriting is elegant, each letter written in deep ink that has barely faded over the decades. They are dated from 1962, spanning exactly 1 year, from Valentine's Day to the following Valentine's Day. The first letter begins innocently. "My dearest Rebecca, your beauty captures my heart like a butterfly trapped in amber." But as Sarah reads further, the tone shifts. The language becomes more possessive, more intense. The handwriting gradually transforms from precise cursive to increasingly erratic, almost manic scrawls. Sarah notices something peculiar. While the letters are addressed to Rebecca Carlton, they are signed only with the initial R. No full name, no return address, just that singular haunting initial. Her journalistic instincts spark to life. These aren't just love letters. They're a psychological journey into obsession. Each page seems to whisper a dark narrative that extends far beyond romantic correspondence. As she continues reading, a chill runs down her spine. The letters describe intimate details about Rebecca. Her daily routine, her favorite dress, the exact time she leaves her workplace. It's not a love letter. It's a documentation of surveillance. Her grandmother, who had preserved these letters so carefully, had never mentioned Rebecca. Why would she keep such an intimate, potentially disturbing collection? What connection did her family have to this mysterious correspondence? The last letter in the stack is dated February 14th, 1963. Its content is different, darker, more threatening. "If I cannot have you, no one will," it reads in jagged, almost violent script. Sarah realizes she's holding more than just letters. She's holding a potential crime scene, a narrative of obsession frozen in time, waiting to be unraveled. Local archives become Sarah's battlefield. She spends weeks cross-referencing historical records, genealogy databases, and old newspaper clippings. The story of Rebecca Carlton emerges slowly, like a photograph developing in dark liquid. Rebecca was a 26-year-old secretary at a prominent law firm in 1962. Described by colleagues as beautiful and ambitious, she was known for her independence, a rare trait for women of that era. Multiple interviews reveal she was engaged to break societal expectations, planning to pursue a career instead of traditional marriage. But something happened. Something that made her vanish without a trace on Valentine's Day, 1963. Local historian, local SHOH dates, who has studied the town's archives for decades, provides crucial insights. Thomas Reed, she tells Sarah, was a local businessman, wealthy, connected, the kind of man who believed he could have anything or anyone he wanted. Newspaper archives paint a chilling picture. Thomas was obsessed with Rebecca. Bank records show multiple expensive gifts, diamond necklaces, fur coats, lavish trips, all refused by Rebecca. Her rejection seemed to fuel his determination. Sarah discovers police reports from that period, incomplete, sanitized. But between the lines, a story emerges of multiple complaints filed by Rebecca against Thomas. Harassment, stalking, threats that were repeatedly dismissed by local authorities who seemed more interested in protecting a prominent businessman. The final report, dated February 15th, 1963, is frustratingly vague. Missing person, Rebecca Carlton, no signs of foul play, presumed to have left town. But Sarah knows better. The letters tell a different story. Computer research reveals more. Thomas Reed never married. He lived in the same town his entire life, working in real estate, maintaining a facade of respectability. But something in his eyes, captured in an old newspaper photograph, speaks of a deeper, more sinister nature. Strange occurrences begin happening to Sarah. Anonymous emails, blocked phone calls, a sense of being watched. When she starts digitizing the letters, her computer glitches, and files mysteriously corrupt. It's as if the story itself is resisting being told. One night, reviewing her research, Sarah discovers a horrifying detail. Thomas Reed's property, sold decades ago, had a basement not mentioned in any official records. The line between investigation and possession blurs. Sarah begins experiencing vivid, terrifying flashbacks, memories that cannot be her own, yet feel devastatingly real. She sees Rebecca, walking home on a cold February evening, the street lights casting long shadows, footsteps behind her, a sudden movement, the struggle, cold hands, desperate, muffled screams. These aren't just dreams. They're visceral experiences that leave physical marks. She wakes with bruises, scratches, the smell of cold winter air, and fear lingering in her bedroom. Psychological evaluation confirms no mental health issues, but the experiences continue. Rebecca's memories, or are they warnings, flood Sarah's consciousness. Local psychic Elena Rodriguez, 55, offers an unexpected perspective. During a consultation, she reveals that some locations carry emotional imprints. Traumatic events create energy signatures that can attach to individuals sensitive to such frequencies. You're not just investigating a cold case, Elena tells her. You've been chosen to complete a narrative that was left unfinished. Sarah's research takes a darker turn. She discovers that several women in the town have disappeared over decades. Always around Valentine's Day, always young, always resembling Rebecca. A pattern emerges, a horrifying, systematic pattern of selection and elimination. A pattern emerges. A horrifying, systematic pattern of selection and elimination. Thomas Reed, now in his late 80s, lives in a care facility. When Sarah attempts to interview him, he remains silent, but his eyes, sharp, intense, calculating, suggest a mind still very much alive and aware. The letters become her obsession. She studies them continuously, discovering hidden messages, codes, references to locations. A complex psychological map of obsession and potential murder. He once had the last word in Logan's missing edition on the unknown Ant Avenue. Her own life begins to mirror Rebecca's. Unexplained packages arrive, flowers, handwritten notes reminiscent of the original letters, always unsigned, always with that haunting initial R. The boundary between past and present dissolves. Sarah realizes she's not just investigating a historical crime. She's become part of a continuing nightmare. Valentine's Day, 62 years after Rebecca's disappearance. Sarah understands now. She's not just a researcher. She's the next chapter in a horrifying generational narrative of obsessive love and calculated destruction. Thomas Reed's final plan becomes clear. He's been selecting women who remind him of Rebecca, preserving his obsession through generations. The letters were more than documentation. They were a blueprint. A breakthrough comes from an unexpected source. Sarah's grandmother's personal diary, discovered in the same box as the letters, reveals a shocking truth. Her grandmother was Rebecca's sister. She knew everything: the murder, the cover-up, the systematic selection of women who would become Thomas's twisted romantic targets. The diary details a family secret. Rebecca wasn't just killed. She was kept, preserved, a living trophy of Thomas's possessive love. Local property records confirm Sarah's suspicions. The basement where Rebecca disappeared still exists, untouched, waiting. On the night of February 14th, Sarah makes a decision. She will confront the truth, regardless of the cost. The basement is exactly as the letters described. Preserved, meticulously maintained, a horrifying museum of obsession. Photographs, clothing, personal items belonging to women who disappeared. And then Thomas appears. Not as a frail old man, but as a predator whose hunger has never diminished. His eyes lock with Sarah's. Recognition, selection, continuation. "I've been waiting," he says simply. The confrontation is both psychological and physical. Sarah, armed with knowledge and her grandmother's hidden recordings, represents the final piece of a generational revenge. The script concludes with a bone-chilling twist. The cycle of obsessive love and calculated murder is about to be broken, or perpetuated. Who is the true victim? Who is the true predator? The line blurs, leaving the audience questioning the complex psychology of love, possession, and generational trauma. Emma Carter, a successful tech journalist specializing in cybersecurity, sits in her minimalist downtown Chicago apartment. Multiple monitors surround her workspace, each displaying complex lines of code, security analysis, and digital forensics. Her latest assignment involves investigating a series of mysterious online harassment cases. Victims, all young professional women, reported escalating digital stalking that seemed to transcend typical stalking. These weren't random trolls or simple hackers. Something more calculated was happening. One case particularly intrigued her. Rachel Winters, 26, a marketing executive, had been receiving meticulously crafted digital communications. Not just emails or messages, but perfectly timed social media posts, targeted advertisements, and even manipulated personal photos that seemed to know her most intimate details. Emma's professional curiosity transforms into a personal mission when she discovers a pattern. Each victim received increasingly personalized digital harassment precisely around Valentine's Day. The digital footprints were sophisticated, almost artistic in their precision. Her initial research reveals a disturbing technological capability. Modern stalking isn't about physical proximity anymore. It's about digital omnipresence. Data aggregation and machine learning have created tools that can deconstruct a person's entire life with terrifying accuracy. She begins compiling a comprehensive database, cross-referencing IP addresses, communication patterns, and psychological profiles of both victims and potential perpetrators. An anonymous encrypted message arrives on her secure communication channel. "Some stories are better left unwritten," it reads. The sender's digital signature is complex, almost too perfect. A warning disguised as a challenge. Emma understands immediately. She's not just investigating a case, she's become part of the narrative. Her research reveals a chilling statistic. Nearly 40% of cyberstalking victims never report their experiences. Fear, shame, the overwhelming sense of digital vulnerability prevents them from seeking help. As she delves deeper, Emma realizes the stalker isn't just collecting information. They're constructing elaborate psychological profiles. Each victim is selected with surgical precision, their digital lives being methodically dissected and analyzed and potentially weaponized. The first act concludes with Emma discovering a hidden connection. All the victims had one specific characteristic in common. They were successful, independent women who had recently ended significant relationships around Valentine's Day. The digital stalker wasn't random. This was deliberate, calculated, a hunt disguised as technological interaction. Forensic digital investigation becomes Emma's battlefield. She builds complex algorithms to trace the stalker's digital footprint, understanding that in the modern world, every interaction leaves a trace. Collaboration with Detective Michael Rye, 42, a cybercrime specialist, provides crucial insights. His team has been tracking similar cases, but lacks the technological sophistication to completely unravel the pattern. It's like hunting a ghost, Reyes explains. These attacks are so sophisticated that traditional investigation methods become obsolete. Emma develops a unique tracking method. By analyzing communication patterns, metadata, and subtle linguistic nuances across multiple platforms, she begins constructing a psychological profile of the perpetrator. The stalker demonstrates an extraordinary understanding of machine learning and social engineering. Their attacks aren't just technological, they're psychologically strategic. Each interaction is designed to incrementally erode the victim's sense of digital safety. Victim testimony reveals a terrifying progression. It starts with seemingly innocuous interactions. A liked social media post, a perfectly timed advertisement that feels too personal, then escalates to more invasive communications. Rachel Winter's case becomes the centerpiece. Her digital life had been completely reconstructed. Fake social media accounts, manipulated photographs, communication logs that suggested intimate knowledge of her daily routine. Emma discovered something more disturbing. The stalker wasn't just collecting information, they were creating alternative digital realities for their victims, parallel narratives that slowly replaced actual lived experiences. Machine learning algorithms typically require massive data sets, but this stalker operated differently. Each attack was individually crafted, suggesting not just technological skill, but a deeply personal understanding of psychological manipulation. Encrypted communication logs reveal a pattern. The attacks always intensified around Valentine's Day, not randomly, but with surgical precision. Each victim had recently terminated a romantic relationship. A breakthrough comes from an unexpected source, a minor inconsistency in an IP address routing pattern. Most investigators would overlook it, but Emma recognizes it as a deliberate breadcrumb. The digital stalker wants to be found, but only on their terms. Digital boundaries dissolve. Emma experiences the same psychological warfare her research subjects endured. Her personal devices become conduits of psychological terror. Text messages from non-existent numbers, social media accounts displaying impossible combinations of her personal photographs, targeted advertisements that reveal impossible levels of personal knowledge. Cybersecurity experts confirm her devices haven't been hacked. Something more sophisticated is happening. The attacks transcend traditional technological breaches. Psychological evaluations suggest she's experiencing a form of technological gaslighting. Her reality is being subtly manipulated, creating an environment of constant uncertainty. Each digital interaction becomes a potential threat. A simple notification transforms into a moment of potential psychological warfare. Forensic psychologist Dr. Elena Martinez, 55, provides crucial insights. Modern stalking isn't about physical proximity, she explains. It's about creating an environment of constant psychological uncertainty. The victim becomes complicit in their own psychological deconstruction. Emma's investigation reveals a horrifying technological capability. Machine learning algorithms can now predict human behavior with terrifying accuracy. By aggregating data from social media, purchase histories, communication patterns, these systems can construct near-perfect psychological profiles. The stalker isn't just collecting information. They're creating alternative digital narratives, slowly replacing actual lived experiences with meticulously constructed digital realities. Her own digital footprint becomes a weapon. Every past interaction, every shared photograph, every casual online communication becomes a potential tool for psychological manipulation. Strange occurrences multiply. Digital advertisements featuring locations she's recently visited, recommendations that suggest impossible levels of personal knowledge, communication patterns that suggest someone is constantly observing, analyzing, predicting. The line between technological investigation and personal vulnerability blurs. Emma realizes she's not just tracking a digital stalker, she's become part of an elaborate psychological experiment. Each interaction, each discovered detail, becomes another thread in a complex digital tapestry. The psychological warfare escalates. Her professional credibility becomes a target. Fabricated online narratives, subtle professional discreditation, a systematic deconstruction of her digital identity. Valentine's Day becomes the ultimate confrontation. Emma understands the stalker's true motivation. This isn't about technology, it's about control. Psychological deconstruction, a perverse form of digital intimacy. Her final breakthrough comes from an unexpected source, a seemingly random communication. David Coleman, 35, a brilliant but deeply disturbed machine learning engineer, had been developing advanced psychological profiling algorithms. His work, initially funded by a prestigious tech company, had been deemed too invasive, too ethically problematic. But David hadn't stopped. He'd transformed his research into a personal mission of psychological manipulation. Each victim represented a specific psychological archetype: successful, independent, recently detached from romantic relationships, perfect subjects for his twisted digital experiment. The technology he'd developed could do more than predict behavior. It could subtly manipulate psychological states, creating alternative digital narratives that slowly replaced actual lived experience. Emma's investigation becomes a direct confrontation, not through traditional means, but through the very technological infrastructure David had constructed. She develops a counter-algorithm, a digital weapon designed to dismantle his carefully constructed psychological manipulation networks. The final confrontation happens digitally. David's system, for all its complexity, had one fundamental weakness. It relied on predictability. Emma's unpredictability becomes her ultimate weapon. As Valentine's Day concludes, the digital stalker's network collapses. Not through traditional investigation, but through a sophisticated technological counterattack. But the script leaves a chilling question. In a world of increasing digital connectivity, can we truly protect our psychological boundaries? The final moments suggest that David might be just one practitioner of a much larger, more sophisticated technological manipulation ecosystem. The line between protection and invasion becomes terrifyingly blurred. Olivia Reed, 35, a forensic genealogist specializing in complex family histories, stands in the sterile environment of her Chicago research office. Genetic testing kits, historical documents, and advanced DNA analysis equipment surround her. Her latest project arrives through an unexpected client. An elderly lawyer representing an anonymous wealthy family seeks to uncover a generational mystery. The brief is unusual. Trace a family lineage that seemingly vanishes and reappears across multiple generations. Initial research reveals a complex pattern. Every generation, precisely on Valentine's Day, a specific genetic line experiences a mysterious event. Family members disappear, records become inconsistent, death certificates lack crucial details. The family tree resembles a fractured narrative. Branches that should connect become abruptly severed. Birth records contradict death records. Photographic evidence suggests impossible continuities. Individuals who appear unchanged across decades. Olivia's expertise in genetic genealogy becomes both a professional challenge and a personal obsession. She develops specialized algorithms to track genetic markers, creating a comprehensive mapping of this unusual family line. Her research uncovers an initial breakthrough. The family originated in a small European village with a dark historical reputation. Local legends spoke of a bloodline cursed to perpetuate a mysterious generational ritual. Historical records from the late 19th century provide fragmented insights. The family, then known as the Kessler lineage, was rumored to practice advanced genetic research far beyond contemporary scientific understanding. Most intriguing are the consistent physical characteristics. Each generation produces remarkably similar physical traits, identical bone structure, specific genetic markers that defy typical genetic variation. An encrypted document catches Olivia's attention. Dated 1872, it references a perpetual bloodline and a Valentine's Day transformation. The language is scientific, yet deliberately cryptic. Personal artifacts accompanying the research materials provide additional context. photographs of family members displaying unsettling similarities, medical records suggesting impossible genetic continuities. As she delves deeper, Olivia realizes this isn't just a genealogical investigation. Something fundamental about human genetic inheritance challenges everything she understands about biological reproduction and genetic transmission. The first act concludes with a chilling revelation. The family doesn't just carry a genetic legacy, they represent something far more complex, a biological phenomenon that defies scientific explanation. Forensic genealogy transforms into a complex scientific investigation. Olivia collaborates with Dr. Marcus Heinrich, a controversial genetic researcher specializing in transgenerational genetic phenomena. What we're looking at isn't just inheritance, Heinrich explains. It's a systematic genetic preservation mechanism that transcends traditional biological understanding. Advanced DNA sequencing reveals extraordinary genetic characteristics. The family's genetic code contains unique markers suggesting deliberate manipulation, not random mutations, but calculated genetic engineering predating modern scientific capabilities. Historical medical records provide crucial insights. Each generation experiences a specific physiological transformation around Valentine's Day. Not aging, not death, something more profound. Genetic markers suggest a form of controlled genetic regeneration, cellular structures that reset rather than degrade, a biological process that defies current scientific understanding of human aging and genetic transmission. Heinrich's research suggests a terrifying possibility. The family isn't experiencing genetic inheritance, they're experiencing a form of controlled genetic replication. Each generation isn't born, they're reconstructed. Archival medical documentation from different historical periods becomes a crucial research resource. Hospitals' records, military draft registrations. Each document reveals subtle inconsistencies that hint at a larger, more complex narrative. A breakthrough comes from an unexpected source. Advanced mitochondrial DNA testing reveals that the genetic line doesn't just continue, it remains fundamentally unchanged across multiple generations. Olivia discovers something more disturbing. The genetic line doesn't just preserve itself, it selectively incorporates genetic material from specific external sources. Historical records suggest a systematic process. Every generation, precisely on Valentine's Day, new genetic material is integrated into the family's core genetic structure. The investigation reveals a horrifying technological capability. Long before modern genetic engineering, this family had developed a method of genetic preservation and selective regeneration. Personal interviews with distant family members provide fragmentary insights. Hushed conversations, generational secrets, understanding that their genetic line represents something beyond traditional human experience. The second act concludes with a chilling realization. This isn't just a family history, it's a documented case of biological manipulation that challenges fundamental understanding of human genetic inheritance. Genetic boundaries dissolve. Olivia experiences physiological changes that mirror her research subjects. Subtle transformations begin. Her cellular structure demonstrates inexplicable regenerative capabilities. Wounds heal instantaneously. Biological markers suggest a cellular reset mechanism far beyond current medical understanding. Medical examinations confirm an impossible scenario. Her genetic structure shows characteristics of selective genetic integration, not mutation, not adaptation, something more deliberate. Forensic geneticist Dr. Elena Rodriguez, 48, provides crucial insights. We're observing a form of controlled genetic transmission that transcends traditional biological reproduction, she explains. Olivia's own body becomes a research subject. Cellular regeneration occurs at impossible rates. Genetic markers suggest a systematic integration of external genetic material. The family's generational pattern becomes personally relevant. Around Valentine's Day, her own physiological structure demonstrates extraordinary transformative capabilities. Historical medical documentation suggests this isn't random. The genetic line doesn't just preserve itself, it selectively reconstructs itself. integrating specific genetic characteristics from carefully selected sources. Personal artifacts become increasingly significant. Family photographs, medical records. Each document suggests a calculated genetic preservation mechanism. Strange occurrences multiply. Biological changes that defy medical explanation. Cellular regeneration that suggests a fundamental reconfiguration of her genetic structure. Olivia realizes she's not just investigating a genetic lineage. She's become part of a generational biological experiment that challenges fundamental understanding of human genetic inheritance. The psychological and physiological boundaries blur. Her professional investigation transforms into a personal biological experience. Medical imaging reveals extraordinary cellular characteristics, genetic markers that suggest a systematic, controlled genetic reconstruction process. Not random mutation, not natural adaptation, something far more deliberate. The line between scientific investigation and personal vulnerability becomes increasingly transparent. Olivia understands now. The genetic line doesn't just continue, it selectively reconstructs itself, incorporating specific genetic characteristics from carefully selected sources. Valentine's Day becomes the ultimate genetic transformation. The family's true nature becomes horrifyingly clear. They aren't just preserving a genetic line, they're conducting a systematic, multi-generational biological experiment. Dr. Ernst Kessler, the last remaining direct descendant, reveals the family's true purpose. Their genetic line represents a deliberate attempt to understand and control human biological reproduction. Dating back to the late 19th century, the family developed a method of genetic preservation that goes beyond traditional reproduction. Each generation doesn't just inherit genetic material, they're systematically reconstructed. The process requires a specific ritual. Precisely on Valentine's Day, genetic material is selectively integrated, not through traditional reproductive methods, through a complex biological process that predates modern genetic understanding. Olivia's investigation reveals the full scope of the family's generational project. They've been systematically studying human genetic transmission, developing methods of controlled genetic preservation and selective reconstruction. The final confrontation becomes a complex exploration of biological boundaries. Not a physical conflict, but a profound scientific revelation. Dr. Kessler explains the family's true motivation, understanding human genetic potential, developing methods of genetic preservation that transcend traditional biological limitations. Olivia represents the next stage of their generational research. Her genetic structure has been systematically prepared, her cellular composition carefully modified to continue the family's generational project. The Valentine's Day ritual becomes a genetic reconstruction process. Not a random transformation, a calculated, systematic integration of specific genetic characteristics. As she's become part of a multi-generational biological experiment that challenges fundamental understanding of human genetic inheritance. The final moments suggest a terrifying possibility. The family's genetic research represents just the beginning of a more profound exploration of human biological potential. The line between scientific research and biological manipulation becomes terrifyingly